I'm not going to insult all of the parents in Loudoun County and Fairfax County who have been leading the charge against critical race theory. And they are a diverse group of parents who grew up with the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. saying we want to judge our kids and each other by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And they have very publicly stated that the critical race theory curriculum that they are seeing their kids come home with does the opposite of that. And it's teaching their kids and their kids of their neighbors who live on the same street as them and the kids that they play baseball with or sports with at school to hate each other based on their skin color. It's really not even about American history. It's about looking at someone in a hierarchy of skin color and saying, because you're lighter than I am or because you're white, you have oppressed me, even though you've never even done that. You know, you are a product of the sin of the people who came before you, despite having zero or anything to do with the history of the country. And it lacks a ton of context when it comes to the progress that the country has made. And so the bottom line is parents who are fighting critical race theory don't want their kids to grow up looking at their fellow peers and saying, I'm going to judge you based on your skin color and determine whether I should oppress you, you should oppress me, or whether we can move forward together as Americans. And so they're just worried about their kids growing up to hate each other as a result of the curriculum. So as usual, President Obama doesn't have all the facts on what critical race theory actually is.
President Barack Obama is mocking Republicans over their concerns about teaching critical race theory in schools. Take a look.
There are certain right-wing media venues, for example, that monetize and capitalize on stoking the fear and resentment of a white population that is witnessing a changing America. You would think, with all the public policy debates that are taking place right now, that the Republican Party would be engaged in a significant debate. Lo and behold, the single most important issue to them apparently right now is critical race theory. Who knew that was the threat to our republic?
And Fox News contributor Leo Terrell calling out the former president for his rhetoric.
He's the last person on earth that should be promoting the critical race theory. Here's the man, if he's oppressed, he became president of the United States. When you promote a theory of hate that specifically targets a particular group of people, i.e. being white, that is a discussion and affects every American in this country. Who in this world oppressed President Obama? He became president.
Greg, give us your take on the Obama interview.
That was a really stupid comment by former President Obama. He's basically insulting people for actually understanding a critical curriculum. He would prefer you to be ignorant of it, to be a low information person. But all of what he should be saying, wow, I'm pretty impressed that these people know this stuff. It's, and also he makes this mistake where he says, in the part of the interview, he talks about how his daughters are saying cancel culture is out of control or it's not good. And then he says CRT is harmless. He doesn't see the connection between the two. That critical race theory helps create the cancel culture by saying that everybody who isn't non-white is an oppressor and therefore must be canceled. And finally, how does he not get that education is actually way more important than anything he just talked about, whether it was climate change or anything? His priorities are all contingent on solving education, which is basically the pyramid base for everything else. I mean, if you look, we talked about crime in the A block. If you look at people that are killed by police, you can trace it almost all the way back to their education. How was their education?
It would be the root cause.
It would be the root. Thank you, Dana. The root cause.
Obama's trying to put out a fire because critical race theory is really hurting Democrats. Average moms and dads are livid about it, what they're hearing back from school. It's insidious. It's pollution of the brain, Geraldo. I want graphic, detailed
what about the
history
about
of the wars and
and
oppression. I want it all out there for us to learn. I don't want psychological warfare on a 13-year-old who's trying to make it through the day. And that's what this is. They're trying to hurt their brain and divide the country. And people are game to it. They get it, and they've rejected it. And Obama's trying to minimize it and tell the rest of the Democrats, hey, use this line. Try this line out, because he's trying to help them. Democrats aren't doing great right now.
After his opposition to the school district teaching critical race theory,
nearly got him banned from attending his own twin daughter's graduation. Sean McBrady is in the Faulkner Focus today. Sean, thanks for joining me. This has been quite a few months, and I understand you can go to the graduation now, but it got pretty intense, and nobody actually ever talked to you face-to-face, took a phone call, none of that. Tell me how it started.
Yeah, last year was really the last full year has been one of frustration. Last June 2nd, so tomorrow essentially will be a one-year anniversary. We were sent a white supremacist letter from the Equity Committee through Jeff Porter, the superintendent of MSCD 51, which is in Cumberland, Maine. It serves Cumberland and North Yarmouth. And essentially that kicked off me really trying to work with the school initially behind the scenes to correct.
What do you mean a white supremacy letter?
So we were sent an equity letter on the heels of the George Floyd death, and essentially it said white supremacy in there 5 times, and it basically called us all white supremacists in Cumberland and North Yarmouth. We didn't know it, of course, but that's what we were called.
And so you fought back how?
I sent a letter, an email to Jeff Porter, the superintendent, really saying, hey, look, you missed an opportunity on First Amendment peaceful protests. This is in the midst of Minneapolis burning to the ground. Also, I said, you could have mentioned our police department. We are the safest town in Maine. It's in the annual report, and our guys are great. I mean, we have had a top-notch police department until recently, where effectively the Equity Committee has defunded our Cumberland Police Department, not through dollars, because we pay a lot of taxes here, but for personnel. We've had a number of folks quit. They're giving their notice quitting or have already left or are leaving, and about half the force is now gone, which makes us all less safe than we were a year ago.
And just to further the point on that, the way that the money comes into play is that they don't fill those positions back. That's what I understand you saying. I want to get this back to the school because there are a lot of parents in Cumberland, the town where you live right now in Maine, who you told me previously really fear the cancel culture. They don't speak up, but they're depending and supporting you for doing it. Why?
Yeah, I mean, this sounds weird, but I feel like I'm the tip of the sword. There's a lot of people behind me, and I've had, a number of business leaders and people across the towns really pull me aside and say, hey, Sean, I believe in what you're doing. I just can't say anything because the cancel culture is so strong here. And really the woke mob, the trolls, they go after everybody. And so I got pushed, and I pushed back hard. So
you go to the school board, the superintendent, via email, you said, because you couldn't get anybody to actually meet with you. And you tell them what about the curriculum in the school district that you want changed?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, and I can't speak for Martin Luther King Jr., but I think he'd be extremely ashamed of what this administration is doing. They're teaching young kids as young as kindergarten to essentially hate their white skin, and it's the oppressor versus oppressor argument. And frankly, I was brought up as the content of your character is the biggest piece. It doesn't matter what the color of your skin is.
Your daughters, they're about to graduate. You will be there. First, there were some pretty strict conditions, and now I understand you're allowed to go and see the band play and do all of that. Real quickly, what's their reaction, your daughters?
Yeah, they just want to be normal seniors and keep their head down. And frankly, Harris, I had no plans of creating a scene. I just wanted to be a dad. And that's all I did at the very beginning this last year. I just wanted to be a dad and tell my school that, look, we need education, not indoctrination.